Hello, Internet. Welcome to episode number, I can't believe I'm saying this, 140 of the Comic Watchers Show. I'm your host, Matt Meyer. With me, as always, is Mighty Mike Eakins, a.k.a. Scoop Johnson. With me this week, I have editor Joe Corallo and creatives Robbie Barrett and Ivan Ehlers from Pocket Comics, the webcomics app that is fixing to launch its very first all original, all new, all different content for the very first time tomorrow. Joe, Robbie, Ivan, welcome to our silly show. How you guys doing? I think you guys are all out there on the West Coast. Is that right? No, Robbie says no.
No. Well, no. We're a bit scattered. The office is in LA, but I'm working remotely out in New York, and yeah, I'll let Robbie say where he's at.
Yeah, I'm just outside of Baltimore in a town called Dundalk.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well, I'm in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, one out of three is actually very bad, but
not
so. Pocket Comics, kind of a new player in the webcomics game. Joe, let's talk about the app a little bit.
No, a little bit. It's a new player here, but you know, they've been around for years as Comico, out in South Korea, Japan, other places throughout Asia. But it's Pocket Comics here, and part of that is a lot of old school comic fans will remember Comico, many years ago. So that name was taken. So went with Pocket Comics, which works very well here. And right now the app's it launched officially last summer. I believe it was like July 2020 with translated content and bringing in a lot of other different content. I know we got like Solo Leveling back in like April and some other webcomics like that, but we've been working on producing original content for the app out, here for, the North American audience.
Okay. So you've been the company itself based out of South Korea for a while now, making a big move here in the United States. So I curious, because the big names, as I understand it, and I'm not an expert in webcomics, is Tapas and Webtoons. So what is it about Pocket Comics that stands out as unique from those other two apps?
Sure. And I mean, those two apps themselves are different. Webtoon tends to have a lot more free content, whereas Tapas, which we're closer in the model to like Tapas, where they use, you have your free reads, you have your coins and things like that. You can do things to get coins, you can pay for coins and things like that. So it's a little closer to more what Tapas is doing. But part of what's going to make each of these platforms unique are going to be the people they have working out here and the content they're going to be producing, which will all be unique to each app.
Okay. Well, so you've got, and again, this launches tomorrow. You've got 5 new original content series that are launching, and I want to touch on all of them, but we do have creators from 2 of them here now. We have Ivan Ehlers, and forgive me if I mispronounced your last name, Ivan, that is bringing us DD Sawyer, Ghoul Destroyer, which is an amazing name, and Robbie Barrett, creator of Strange Familiar. Ivan, your time's a little limited, so I would like to just jump in, and if you tell us a little bit about DD.
Absolutely. And you got my name right. There's like 7 different ways to pronounce it, and depending on how old school German the people are, they'll say Ehlers, Eilers, Oilers. Any number of things. But you got it right the first time out.
Thank you, God.
Yeah, Dee Sawyer. It's a really fun comic we've been working on together, and I'm very excited for everyone to be able to see it. It's to keep it in as few words as possible. It's basically a young Latina punk rocker fights ghouls that only she can see. So it's one of these stories where she discovers a secret power she didn't know she had. And it's all kind of explained how she gets it and everything. But in essence, she destroys ghouls.
Oh, I'm hearing a little bit of a Buffy vibe.
Yeah, I could see that. I think that would not be out of line.
Okay, all right, Mike. Let's get you jumping in the conversation a little bit, bud.
Sure. Ivan, Robbie, Joe, thanks again for hanging out with us, taking time out. Ivan, real quick,
Pleasure.
how is this different from like your work with Mad, the stuff that you do with the New Yorker? How is your approach differing from like now going through the scrolling format and kind of?
Yeah.
Are you kind of finding yourself? You can't do it this way, but you got to kind of do it this way. Like, how much are you tweaking your art and your approach to what you're doing?
Yeah, that is a very good question. It's completely different in almost every way. So, like a lot of stuff for, especially New Yorker stuff, it tends to be isolated single gag. Like, here's the one joke,
Right?
and you'll never think of it again.
Right.
And it has to be a setup and a punchline, oftentimes in one drawing. Or if it's like, even if it's a longer form like daily shout piece, it's still going to be build up to serve one joke in essence, and maybe a few little riffs on that. Whereas this is a long form where we're telling a big story with multiple character arcs and different sorts of emotions that we're hitting. We've got some romantic themes going through, personal growth things going through, and a lot of action. And so it's a much more expansive things going on than, and especially compared to Mad, which is just like either like really silly poop jokes or like really attacking politicians.
Yeah, they must really have it out for that Spyro Agnew guy.
What's funny is when I was first reading Mad as a kid, I definitely knew who Spiro Agnew was, and I just knew the name but had no idea what the hell. I was like, this is a silly name they made up, Spiro Agnew. So that joke really rang true for me.
You can thank Milhouse Van Houten for letting me channel him for that one.
Oh yeah, thank you, Milhouse.
Definitely, man. I definitely want to touch back on your Mad roots here in just a moment. But Robbie and Ivan, talk us through like the process a little bit of creating a web comic, because obviously it's just so different from pencil and paper, except maybe it's not. I don't know because I don't do it. But like just comparing this on work that you have done that's not digital in the past, what is this like for you as artists?
It's pretty different for me. I've always done a lot of watercolors and pen and ink type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But when I went into it, knowing it was going to be more on the phone, I wanted to try to like make a comic that would suit that.
Sure.
I went to SVA for schooling, and they always taught us like whatever kind of comic you're making, try to lay it out so that it suits. Like if you're going to have something that rolls out long ways, make a comic where you tell the story that way. So I try to think about it like that, I guess, a lot more. But then transitioning to digital, this is my first like big digital piece.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't too different, I guess, because it's still like working with layers. Like with watercolor, you got to work with layers. So it was just about changing my mindset, and it's a lot easier too because you can just delete whatever you just did and fix it.
Sure.
Like that. With watercolor, it's a lot harder to fix stuff.
That makes sense. Ivan, how about you?
A few years ago, I made the transition over to digital, and I fought it for decades. And I was just so against it. I was like, that's cheating. This isn't true art. This sucks. And my friend gave me a tablet, and man, I was a fool for so long. It's so much easier and so much faster. And if I'm doing stuff like New Yorker or Mad stuff, I'll go back and do originals.
Mm-hmm.
But on a lot of other stuff, I'll usually like draw something by hand, like sketch it out on paper, and then take a picture with my cell phone and pop it into something, and then kind of trace over that.
Right.
And it's just so much faster. It's unbelievably fast. But also another thing to answer your question is, other mediums, you're going to be looking at it in a print magazine or something like that.
Right.
And everything you're going to be seeing on a little phone. So a lot of stuff, you can't expect it to be this big for people to see details that are going to be so enormous. So you have to gear it towards how people are going to see it. Like Robbie was saying, however it's presented, that's what you have to maximize. And so just, find things so when they scroll, it'll be a fun reveal. And things like that, where it's going to develop and have a flow to it in that regard.
Yeah, that's such an interesting difference to me from traditional print comics or even like Comixology, where you're quote unquote flipping a digital page.
Yeah.
Because with those, you have to be cognizant of the page itself and its dimensions and how it presents as a cohesive whole, and flipping the page and taking that into account with the reader's experience as they're consuming it, right? But
Absolutely.
with webcomics, it's something totally different. Like Mike probably remembers this. We had Justin Jordan on the show, a year and a half or so ago. And I can't believe it's been that long, but it has. And he was talking up webcomics, and I'm just doing my homework before and scrolling through. And I mean, my old man mind is just blown because it's this totally new reading experience for me, this new way of consuming this style of art. And I mean, it's just incredible to me, just the possibilities of it, So, I mean, with that in mind, though, I mean, webcomics relatively new. They've been around for a minute now, but in the grand scheme of things, are relatively new. So, Ivan, Robbie, how did you guys get drafted into this thing?
Well, I've known Joe for years, and one day he was just sort of like, I should get you to pitch something. So I was like, all right, yeah, I'll just pitch something. It was pretty simple for me. Sometimes it's just about like kind of.
We're gonna work on your origin story, sir.
Yeah. But I've always had a lot of ideas. So I was like, all right, well, I'm not gonna make something that I've thought about for a long time. I'm just gonna make something that is original, so that I don't feel attached to any part of it. Because that's always been like a thing for me. I don't want to change something because I've thought of it a certain way for so long. So I was like, I'll just make something entirely new for this. So I won't feel precious about any of it.
Sure. Ivan?
Yeah, for me, I was working with the editor Rebecca Bohannon.
Yep, Rebecca Bohannon.
And she was an editor at Mad Magazine, and we would work, together sometimes like every day for weeks, editing items back and forth together. So we got to know each other real well. And, at the time I'd be doing daily comics or daily cartoons for Mad Magazine. So I'd send them in to her and be like, hey, here's this idea. Here's this pitch idea. So we'd been working together for a long time. And when she came over here to Pocket Comics, she wanted to know if I had any ideas for longer form stuff. And you know what? I did. And that's what became Dee Dee Sawyer, Ghoul Destroyer.
So we touched a little bit on the surface of what Dee Dee Sawyer is about, but I mean, what are your influences for it?
Shoot.
Especially with this being your first foray into like longer format storytelling.
Yeah, well, influences are always hard to say. I've got like 12,000 of them, and it's like really, really difficult. But for this one, for comics, I used to do a lot of stuff that was kind of like Dan Clowes sort of ripoff, sort of thing like that. And for this one, I just really wanted to do a lot of fun, like energetic sorts of things where the drawing, more important behind the drawing was like the emotion and the power behind it and showing motion and stuff like that. So a lot of the things that influenced this specifically were like the Gorillas artwork, like Jamie Hewlett and people
awesome.
like that. And like that type of just getting really cool, weird lines. One of the like rules on the thing was no straight lines,
Yeah.
and just keep it very loose and to just focus on what was behind the emotion and like focus on funny faces to show how they felt and stuff like that.
Right.
So that was like where I was coming from.
Okay, that's awesome though, and I especially like that you name dropped Daniel Close. So,
Oh yeah,
Ghost
my favorite dude.
all the way, man.
Yeah.
All the way. So, looking at,
Hey, there we go.
hey,
He's so good. He's so brilliant.
yeah, he really is. He really is. How do you not like Daniel Close? So, I mean, really, Strange Familiar and D.D. Sawyer are both pretty eclectic books, and they're very stylistically different. And then you look at some of the other works that are going to be debuting here, like School Spirit and Wild, and God, I just went blank on the other one. Dating Makes Perfect, and Joe. They're all pretty wide array of content and style. What was your what were you going for? Like a little bit of everything, a little bit of anything but superheroes, I mean, what was the statement?
Yeah, I'm going to try not to speak too much for Rebecca with her not being here, but I try to a little bit. Is we definitely didn't want to do superhero stuff. I definitely like a lot of like mixed genre stuff. So like it's fantasy, but it's slice of life, or it's fantasy adventure, and things like that. With the different things we were going for, it's a lot of just throwing shit, at the wall, seeing what sticks kind of stuff. In terms of we're really just launching this with the originals. We want to track and see how things go, what people are responding to, what people aren't, and in order to do that, you need a wide array of different kinds of stories to feel out the audience, because this is something new for the app right now.
Right.
Like we were saying, there's no original North American content, so it's all translated stuff for now. So it's going to be a matter of seeing what's going to translate in terms of readership, if this is going to draw new readers, what the readers on the app are going to be more or less inclined to check out. So I think it's important to have, a wide array of styles, different kinds of stories. We're going to have some stuff that's a little more down to earth, like Dating Makes Perfect. And we're going to have stuff that's a little more off the wall, like what, Robbie and Ivan are doing.
Okay, well then that makes sense. I mean, you do want to cast a wide net, especially when you're just testing the waters, because
absolutely,
you never know what's going to strike. Mike, I keep talking and you're not, and I apologize. Why don't you jump in, buddy?
No worries. I'm here for at least 45 minutes. We're good. I got it. So what was the initial draw to webcomics or this format, and not just like do like an anthology off of like Kickstarter, grab some artists, grab some writers and stuff, and create that way? What was it about this format that you three just enjoy and thought that let's tackle this, let's bring some OGN type stuff, some non manga?
No, that was awkward. So anyway,
what a liar! 45 minutes.
Wow.
No, but
hell with us.
Yeah, but for me at least, and then I'll other people start. I think you're muted, Ivan.
Damn it! It was a good joke too.
Damn. Oh well.
There.
But no, I mean, when it comes to this sort of stuff, what attracts me to webcomics? I mean, I've been reading webcomics since the early 2000s. I got really into like Brian Clevenger's 8-bit theater. You had was it Mega Tokyo and the early days of like Penny Arcade, things like that. So obviously web comics and then webtoons and all of that have really changed the landscape, and it's evolved a lot since then. But I've had friends who've done originals over at like Webtoon, other places. I've thought about doing different things in that format. So it was something I was already keened into and wanted to be a part of.
Well, and I mean, it's important because it opens up new avenues to consume this type of material for readers that might not be inclined to walk into a comic store or go to Comixology even, Pardon me. I mean, an app, it's right there. It's on your phone. It's convenient. It's handy. You can read it while you're on the can if you need to.
Sure.
You can read it on the subway on your way to work,
It's in your pocket.
It's in your pocket.
Sure.
Womp, womp. So, I mean, I think that's I like it. And I mean, it's not just like, oh, it's a new cute novelty. But I mean, these things obviously have legs, and I appreciate the fact that creators like you are willing to go out there and do something that's really different. I mean, Joe, I was kind of going over your resume a little bit, and you're a little bit of an indie darling background. Kim and Kim was nominated for a GLAAD award, or
yes,
won? Yes,
it was nominated in the volume I edited in like 2018. But yeah.
Okay, perfect. And then you also got an Eisner nom and congratulations on that, belatedly, by the way. And then an Eisner nom for the short story Mine, which, so I mean, you're obviously kind of well versed in this sort of thing. So, how did you get hooked in to Pocket Comics yourself?
I've had this sort of experience doing stuff. I've also done stuff over at Comixology, and when you do stuff over there, you kind of have to handle everything in terms of getting everything ready, print ready, doing it all, uploading it to an FTP and everything. So I had experience on all ends of putting comics together, and then there was this opportunity that I decided to throw my hat in the ring for, because I think a lot of people acknowledge that this is a growing platform. I mean, the fact that you have places like Substack that are going to be pouring millions of dollars into creating, original comics and things like that as well. We have Marvel and DC are both going into the scrolling comics game. So, I mean, this is like the gold rush kind of thing right now.
Yeah, that's kind of the sense I'm getting.
Yeah.
A little bit of Wild West, where anybody that wants to try something, hell, I mean, why not, right?
Yeah,
so,
and this is going to, I think, part of it being this atmosphere is advantageous to something like Pocket Comics, because I think there's going to be people who are going to be like, ooh, there's other apps, ooh, there's other places to get content, what content's here, what content's there. And because the way a lot of these apps work, it's not like streaming services where it's like, oh, I got to pay like $7.99 or $20 a month or whatever for these different services. It's $0 entry to at least poke around these apps and see what's available. And even a lot of the paid comics, when you're looking at Tapas or even Pocket Comics, you get so many chapters for free already. So like people are able to go in, see what they like, see what they want to invest in. So I think that combination of everyone's trying to get in the game right now, and people being hungry for that content, on top of I got distracted there for a second.
Yeah,
but
well,
no,
Mike
it's
quit Jack. He's
it's
back, so we had to bring him back.
But no, I think that's an advantageous point, and it could potentially increase, readership for platforms like Pocket Comics, just because of the environment and the growing coverage and interest from other areas in comics here.
Sure. And I mean, the company itself has launched last year with exclusively, and forgive me if I'm wrong in this, but exclusively manga content. So kind of a built-in audience right there, because people do like their manga. Mike, welcome back. Now that
Thank
you're
you.
back,
My apologies, gentlemen.
Goodness alive. Well, Ivan, I know you're running a little short on time, but I wanted to throw it back to you and just kind of, before you had to bounce out, and find out what, I mean, assuming DD Sawyer blows up and conquers the internet, and even if it doesn't, I mean, what's next? Do you have more ideas percolating? I mean, what's your goal, buddy? Because I know you're probably doing pretty cushy work with New Yorker magazine.
Oh yeah, I live a cushy lifestyle.
I can tell. It's your Nike shirt.
Yeah, no poor people can afford one of these. I was going to say one other thing for two more influences.
Oh yeah.
Since we're on comic stuff, a big one when I was a youngman was that Joe Madureira. You guys remember that?
Joe Mad. Yes,
of course.
sir.
And one other one. I think this may be in your background, Mike, but I could be looking totally wrong. Was one Jeff Smith? Is that Bone behind you?
That is.
Yeah.
Hey.
I got the old school Bone toy, and this has like a lot of the same kind of going for like sweet emotions and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and
very cool.
Not Aerosmith, but so things like that. But yeah, so we. Rebecca and I have already been talking about, depending on how well it does, we're treating it like almost like a TV series. So this is like the first season. And if people don't totally vomit when they read it and somewhat mildly enjoy it, there might be more. So I've been like toying around with where it could go, and, how it could be presented in different formats would be rad, be it like animated movie or something like that. I think that would be rad somewhere down the line. But yeah, I'm always doing a million things. So
well, it's good to keep busy
right now. It may be a graphic novel when it turns out that I can't write prose, which is looking more and more like that every day. Yeah.
Join the club, dude.
Yeah, it might just be a
That's why we
screenplay.
review comics and talk about them.
Yeah, much easier to write like he runs. He makes a face that's scared instead of, writing out exposition and things like that. So
adjectives.
Yeah. No, he said angrily. He said stupidly. He said with a smirk that you knew he did it. Sounds like my horrible writing. But yeah, so I've got a million things that, I'm always working on. I finally was able to quit a horrible day job to just do art full time.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's the dream.
It's fucking excellent. So yeah, now my life doesn't suck nearly as much as it did some months ago.
I mean, you're getting to create for a living, dude. There's
Nice.
nothing better when you're a creator.
Yeah, no, I really like it. It's great.
Awesome. Well, Ivan, our thanks for hanging out with us, and I'm not just kicking out or anything, but
I appreciate it. Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. DD Sawyer, Ghoul Destroyer, has a pretty cool video out now that you can preview on YouTube or on comic-watch.com. And the whole dang thing goes live tomorrow. So check it out. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was nice meeting you guys.
You too, buddy.
I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Absolutely.
Have a wonderful night.
All right, Robbie Barrett, now then.
Dun, 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 dun.
This
pressure.
poor man, he's just been sitting here like basically listening to me ramble for 30 minutes.
That's cool.
Strange Familiar. It's about a boy wizard and his slime.
Yeah.
That's a tagline. Talk to us, brother. What do you got here?
So yeah, it's like what you're saying. Young mage. He's about 15 years old. He goes to perform his ritual to meet his familiar, and instead of your usual animal familiar, he gets a slime, and he doesn't know why. It creates a lot of trouble for him, and they bicker, and they gotta learn how to get along.
So a slime, like Slimer.
Well, like an early stage monster you might fight in the game. I like the idea. I like underdog stories. I like the idea of like a lowly slime monster being the best friend or the protagonist of the story.
Interesting. So, I mean, tell us a little bit about, if you would, about the world of Strange Familiar, because it sounds like we got maybe a little D&D, maybe a little bit of 8-bit Castlevania happening. Scope Harry Potter, maybe. I don't know. I mean, you break it down for me.
So I do like a lot of like traditional fantasy D&D, video game, Pokemon, Digimon type stuff. I was interested in a world where it was like if wizards, mages existed, but it was modern. So not necessarily just castles. There's still like the castles and fortresses and stuff, but also if they made sort of modern buildings, like wizards towers are always a thing, and those are very vertical, so that was in my mind that would be a cool element to play with in the comic, since it was all going to be so vertical. So a lot of it like sort of stemmed from wanting to make a world where it was modern and still had that fantasy vibe to it.
Okay, so basically, and tell me if I'm wrong, if I'm hearing you correctly, it's kind of like if you had a old school D&D with castles and dungeons, and it just naturally evolved into our modern world.
Yeah.
And there are slimes.
Yeah, slimes, monsters, your usual fantasy fare. It's centered on a mage, so it's very focused on like the familiar aspect. A lot of the characters have their own familiars that sort of represent their magic or aspects of their personality. I'm a big Pokemon fan, Digimon fan, so I was taking some elements of that and putting that in there.
I think that's an interesting place to start, because I've always, anytime you see what you're describing, the stereotypical D&D fantasy type world, there's a sameness to it, right? Like there was the castle, and there was the Shire over there, and the fields of evil forest dwellers. And I've always thought to myself, why not evolve that, I should say, into something a little bit different. So tell us a little bit about the characters in Strange Familiar, because I'm really digging your vibe here.
Oh, thank you. So you have Charlie, the main character. He's about 15 years old. His parents are pretty wealthy. He's sort of been treated as the golden child his whole life. So he kind of comes across as a brat. He has to like kind of learn how to tone that down as the story progresses. I don't want to give too much away, but he's thrown off into a world he's never had to deal with before. So not a different world, but emotionally.
Yeah. And I'm looking at your art a little bit on the promo piece that Rebecca sent me, and I'm getting just a little sense of a Scott Pilgrim vibe going on.
Yeah, that was one of the first comics where I was like, whoa, I could do a cartoony, or like a cartoony sort of comic is out there, exists. And I thought it was just really interesting and cool. So before that, I was really into your traditional sort of Marvel comics. X-Men was my big, what I grew up reading. I wanted to draw like Chris Bachalo, or like, I can't remember his name right now. But a lot of people that had a very like realistic and cartoony feel all at once. And I just really liked the emotion that you can really push with a very cartoony style.
Yeah.
faces you can get and the exaggeration and all that kind of stuff.
But
Were
then
you
you see-
thinking Bill Sienkiewicz?
No, but that is
Okay.
one.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I was thinking,
Who doesn't love Bill?
Mm.
yeah, he did a Superman. Like they reimagined like Superman's youth. I can't remember his name.
Mhm.
It's not super important.
It's going to come
Okay.
to you at the least opportune time.
Yeah.
Like we'll be doing our outro, and you're going to be like, "Oh, Arthur Adams!" Or,
Yeah.
whomever.
It was all like kind of in the same vein as what I do now, but kind of surprising compared to what I actually do now. Like, oh, you were into that kind of like very realistic
Yeah,
art
because
with
you were
a
talking about
tinge of, like,
watercoloring earlier, and I looked at the art for Strange Familiar, and I'm like, this is not at all what I have in mind based on him describing watercolors.
yeah, no, these are like solid colors. I really like working with color and playing with
Mhm.
color. But it's just faster to have solid colors. I have worked
Sure.
like that before. Cartoonist Jason Little, I interned for him a while back, and I did colors for him. So I sort of try to remember everything I was doing there, and
Right.
I've done colors on my own illustrations. It's just a lot more rendered and painterly.
So
I
no
had
flaps
to-
as much as you might be thinking.
Yeah, just for
Right.
like production, you gotta speed it up, and also like it being on a phone, you wouldn't be able to really get the detail.
Right.
I would normally-
I'm thinking, again, holding my phone, something that is more bold and solid and easy
Exactly.
for the eye to follow is probably preferred.
Yeah.
So, Mike, you want to jump in a little for Robbie?
Yeah, hopefully I won't get cut off again. My apologies.
Stupid
right.
updates.
Yeah, that's like, really? Now we're going to do this? But, Robbie, how did the pitch go for Strange Familiar? Was this a character that you've had for a while that's been kind of wanting to get out of the crypt, so to speak? Or was that when you were approached to come on board with this project, did you automatically like, oh, I already have this is what I kind of want to do type deal?
There were elements that I had already created. Like I said earlier, I have a lot of different ideas for different things, so I just sort of took some of the slime-based ideas. As a child of the early '90s Nickelodeon,
Mhm.
slime is just like embedded in my
Yeah.
soul.
Right.
So I've always wanted to do something with slime. I just always thought it was really fun. It's fun to draw, all that kind of stuff. And I think I was playing Ni no Kuni at the time, so I was like, "Oh, familiars, that'd be cool to work with something with that." And I've always loved Pokemon, so
Mhm.
being able to incorporate elements of that into it, that was something I wanted to do.
Yeah.
The actual characters and stuff like that. Maybe like some of the archetypes I've worked with them before, but it was all pretty much original for
Well,
this
I like-
slime.
Very
I
cool.
like the fact that you're taking a several familiar archetypes and mixing them up, doing something new with them.
Mhm.
Most people are, give my wordplay, familiar with the concepts of a familiar, but well, now it's a big ball of snot. Joe, what is it about Robbie's work that drew you to him?
Yeah, I mean, like Robbie had mentioned before, we've
Stroke
known each
his
other.
ego.
Yeah, but we've known each other for a while, and Robbie's worked on other fantasy comics in the past, like you've self-published things like was it Paul and Cloud Boy and stuff like that, and so you're not taking from those and rejiggering things, but there's certain elements and certain things and kinds of like personalities that I've seen in those works that have worked their way into this, even though they're different characters in different situations. But yeah, like that kind of stuff. And we had worked together before. We had a story published in was it Dates Volume 3, which got an Ignatz nomination. Was it last year? I think the 2020 Ignatz.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'd already worked together, kind of had that rapport going. I kind of knew the kind of story that Robbie would probably want to do. So that's kind of where that all came about.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Awesome. So on the one end of things, you've got Dee Dee Sawyer, and the destroying of the ghouls. And on the other end of things, so I guess maybe more in the middle, you've got Strange Familiar. And then at the far end of things, we start getting into some really different genres. We've got actually, this is probably my favorite, just based on the description, is Wild from Zoe Arson, and I hope I pronounced her last name correctly. But it's about a K-pop group that's werewolves, and that's really interesting. How in the world do you mash these things up, Joe, and pull it off?
Yeah, no, and we have other pitches that are also pretty outlandish. So
sure, and I love that. Don't get me wrong.
I feel like the webtoon scrolling format kind of helps lend itself to some of these kind of ideas. I think because of the format where you always get at least like a couple of episodes, if not more, free. So it helps take some of the risk away. It tears down some of the barriers because, if you might print a comic like that, you're coming in, you need to throw down $4, $5.
Sure.
Maybe more sometimes. But here, it can be outlandish, and but that outlandishness is the hook, and then you check it out and you see if it's for you. It is harder with print comics to do that because of the
there's
monetary
a lot
barrier.
more risk that you got to front load.
Yeah,
financially and otherwise, mostly financially.
Oh, for sure. But and sometimes you get books like what was it, By the Horns from Scout Comics. I really like that book, but again, that's something where it was like, you needed people to kind of be like, oh, it's good. You need that word of mouth, get it out there to have someone like me pick it up, and I really like it. But it's a lot easier if it's like, hey, here, let me share this link to this free episode to see if you like it. And it's only going to take you 2 or 3 minutes, to go through the episode. It's a much softer ask of someone. So
sure, yeah. I mean, you're potentially asking for 5 minutes rather than $5. So, I can be down with that. I mean, there's a lot less risk, and I think you're right. You're likely to get more casual people in to at least take a look.
Yeah.
So how? Well, I don't want to get too. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I'm just curious how in webcomics you measure your success, because I know, you've got impressions and you've got views versus God knows what else. I'm still new to running our website, so the terminology escapes me right now. But I mean, how do you decide enough people are digging on this for us to order more?
It's multiple factors that are going to take place. It's going to be, it's going to be clicks, views. It's going to be unique views. It's going to be the amount of people who are paying beyond that, and how many people love this so much that they're paying for the content after X amount of episodes and whatnot. So there's all of that to factor in. So because ideally, because it's not a lot of money to pay to keep going with the coins. You can do different things to access coins, but if you get I'm just throwing it out, things like hypothetically,
sure,
if you're getting 500,000 views on something, you'd if you saw that 50,000 were willing to pay and move forward and do that, you have this casual audience, and then you have a hardcore audience that's maybe 10%. That's not a bad place to be. If you have 500,000 people viewing it and only 5,000 people are willing to pay and move ahead, then maybe you don't have a strong enough hook. Yeah.
Right. Now, I will say a multi-generational werewolf saga that is now at its most recent incarnation as a K-pop band is definitely going to hook somebody.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Mike, I know you like werewolves.
I'm
I don't know
here
how
for
you feel
werewolves
about
alone.
K-pop, but I know you like
Yeah.
werewolves and horror.
I could get into K-pop. I got room in my repertoire for some K-pop.
Okay.
Why not?
All right.
I'm absolutely down for it.
All right. I want to see your K-pop sampler playlist after we're done.
As long as we got
Do
all the
it.
webcomics, we're good to go. It really does look interesting. I mean, who doesn't love one? I mean, who doesn't love werewolf stories? So, I mean, it could be werewolves, redoing Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and I'm gonna read it. So we'll be good.
Well, and the art is really cool and wild as
Yeah.
well. Again, I hope I don't butcher this name too badly, but Isip Shin. I hope that wasn't too terribly off.
I haven't pronounced it out loud, so I don't know.
Okay, well, look, we're gonna hope for the best.
Yeah.
The internet never punishes anybody for making honest mistakes,
It's true.
so we're just going to go with that. But the artwork is really cool and not quite impressionistic, but just different. Like, and it's just the fact that this is based on a Wattpad book series called Light as a Feather and turned into a Hulu show. That's kind of got a built-in audience all over it. So I'm really digging on this.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's kind of mostly in the middle, and then we've got School Spirit about students that discover their university is using sorcery for evil. Tell us about that a little bit, Joe.
That's a good one. That's Tiffany Babb is the writer on that one. Then we got Samantha Ong doing the art, but yeah, that's a different kind of like I do love fantasy and working in that sort of genre, but whereas what Robbie's doing is more high fantasy, this is lower fantasy in a more realistic setting. It's more of an ensembled cast as opposed to Robbie's doing, where it's really focused on the main character and is familiar. There's the other characters, but like it really focuses on their relationship and them getting to know each other, whereas this it's really focused on these like four characters and how they're all interacting, the people they meet, their relationship with the school. So yeah, there's.
So I mean, it's just like a standard college university, right? At least in theory.
In theory, on the outside, yes, that's what it looks like, and they're interacting. They're going to class, and it's normal kind of stuff.
Except for the evil sorcery.
Yeah, that stuff. It's like seeping in the background. We sort of get engulfed into that story, whereas Strange Familiar is pretty high fantasy out the gate. So
right,
yeah.
So I'm looking at Tiffany Babb, and I see that she's written for Paste Magazine and AV Club. Is this her first foray into fiction?
I believe she's done some fiction, but in terms of like webcomics and all of that, this was definitely her first foray into that, as far as I know. So.
Right. Okay. And the art from Samantha Ong, for those of you who like artist David Lopez, is pretty in that ballpark. So that fantastic artist. Oh, so the fifth one, and I think the one that maybe has the least in common with the other four, is Dating Makes Perfect, an adaptation of a YA novel, same name, and it's by Pentip Dunn, and has an all-tie cast and artwork by Emily Kim. Tell us about Dating Makes Perfect, Joe.
With Dating Makes Perfect, that's a bit more of Rebecca's baby, but in part of that, one of the goals we've had with Pocket Comics has been adapting different novels. Like we're trying to, we're in the process. We've acquired some novels and we're looking into doing adaptations of them. And Dating Makes Perfect is the first example of one that we're putting out there. But it's it's just an interesting way to see what, again, this is all part of that, like, let's see what works, let's see,
Right.
we can do a mix of licensed properties and a mix of original IP, which at least with traditional comics publishers has kind of always been the game of, let's try to balance original content and licensed properties and see where things go. So Dating Makes Perfect is part of that mindset.
I'm kind of, and I love that because again, you're trying a little bit of everything, and it's none of it is extremely obvious by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, sure.
And I am looking at something like Dating Makes Perfect, and the first thing I'm thinking of is, of course, romance comics, which in the modern context of print comics are dead, but there's the YA angle of it, an aspect which makes me think, probably somebody out there that is in middle school, early high school, maybe younger, maybe older, who knows, who cares,
Sure.
that might be down for just some basic slice of life.
Oh yeah.
So,
no, you look at a lot of the stuff that's really popular on Webtoon, Tapas, and all that. It's a lot of slice of life romance kind of stuff that tends to really dominate these platforms. It's a different ballgame. So it's romance and slice of life stuff is something we're absolutely going to be developing more of. And this is part of that. Also, having sort of a diverse cast of characters and things like that, trying to have these different viewpoints and whatnot across the platform with something like Dating Makes Perfect. So that's kind of what we've been feeling at, which is in part why we're not doing as we're not going to focus as much on stuff like superhero comics, for example.
Sure.
I mean, even if you look at Webtoons doing the Batman comics right now with the Wayne family adventures, that you could hardly call that a superhero comic. It's a slice of life comedy with superhero paint over it. But so that kind of stuff does move the needle when it comes to webcomics, and I'm sure we're going to be doing more of that soon.
So we were talking earlier about like your yardstick for measuring success. I mean, are you putting any hard deadlines like, well, we've got 90 days to make sure that this thing doesn't fall on its face or anything like that? Or, I mean, are you playing it out for a little bit of a longer game to just see what happens? Without telling me all the the gnarly business details of Pocket Comics, obviously. I'm just really genuinely curious because this is all new for me. So
no, sure. I mean, it's going to take a little bit of time, and then we're going to see where things go. We already have things in mind to develop, regardless of how things go with testing out these properties. So there is a plan moving forward either way. This is more or less going to give us an idea of things to focus on, like let's say Dating Makes Perfect runs away with it, and that's like by far the biggest hit. Then we would absolutely be doubling down more on things like romance slice of life and novel adaptations.
Sorry, Robbie.
If Strange Familiar ends up exceeding expectations from people higher than me, it might be like, oh well, maybe we should be putting more into original IP, or maybe we should do hybrid fantasy genre stuff and keep going in that direction, and be like, okay, well, let's do original IP, and we want to do romance and more of that, but maybe let's give it a fantasy flair and things like that. So we'll see how it goes, but we certainly have ideas and options on where to go.
And that's so good because we're a Comic Watch. We're a scrappy little upstart side ourselves, and here you guys channeling that same a little bit of that same energy, probably a little better than we are, but
Yeah.
we get by with our DIY ethos, damn it. And was just so happy when Rebecca reached out to us and said, "Hey, can we get together and promote this?" Because I mean, we're always going to want to promote somebody else that's up and coming.
Sure.
And I mean, if we can help you get to whatever the next level is, I mean, Robbie, if it's something else other than what you're doing with Pocket Comics, I mean, we want to help there. We want to make sure that we're a voice for anyone that's shouting out and saying, "Hey, there's something else out there other than the big two." So, I mean, I'm just really and truly humbled by the experience that we've had so far working with Pocket Comics.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, did you have anything else that you wanted to throw out there? We're coming up towards the end of our hour.
Yeah, just a real quick for Robbie. With regards to Strange Familiar, is there a takeaway that you want readers to walk away with? What can they, what would you want them to kind of take away? What should they expect when they read Strange Familiar?
I guess I think a lot about the connections we have with our animals, our pets, stuff like that. And also, I think, like I said earlier, like underdog type stories, things aren't always what you think they are.
Sure.
And they're being of value in what might seem worthless. Those are all things I really like to focus on in general. Whether it's like on purpose or just psychologically, it's in there, it comes out.
That's awesome.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, Robbie, Joe, thank you guys so much for coming on. I really wish Rebecca could have been here too.
Yeah.
She's been the point woman on this little initiative of ours, and I know she's not feeling well, so our best to Rebecca Bohannon at Pocket Comics.
Cool.
Get to feeling better, sister. We need to talk again soon. But Pocket Comics launches its all new, all different original material tomorrow. Joe, what was that time?
It should be tomorrow evening.
Tomorrow?
I don't have the thing in front of me.
Okay.
Yeah, it's tomorrow. Keep looking. You should be checking out the app already.
Absolutely. Hey, I've got the app. But until then, you should anyone listening, please support small businesses, small publishers, independent creators, Kickstarters, anyone out there that's got a vision and a dream and they want it heard, because I guarantee you there's 100,000 of them that are worthy of your time, and Pocket Comics has definitely got some of them. So until next week, read something cool, support your local comic store and your webcomics app, and just be kind to each other. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Robbie. And nerds, we'll see you next time.